Hello, guys, and welcome to Kerbal Space Program. I am your humble host, Christopher Tarantola. Playing, I said it's Tarantola's Return, but I'm going to dub this, I think, Back in the Saddle. It's the Back in the Saddle. I'm getting back into it. Okay, so let us see here. Oh, I got to move this around a little bit so I can. Oh, sorry. I'm messing things up. I'm a ditz. Okay, there we go. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna see where we're at. We got 55 science. I don't know if that can buy anything. It can. Is it anything I want? Decouplers, struts. Ooh. I don't know that it really buys me anything I want right now. Okay, let's see. What missions do we have? Active contracts. Okay. Okay, get somebody to pass out. Okay, let's try that. That's that. I'm not even worried about the rest of it. I just want to get somebody to pass out. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Ugh. Hair. Sorry, guys. I know that wasn't necessarily the most attractive. Actually, you can't see me at all, so what do you care? Let's fix that. There I am. Okay, there I am. Bingo. And here, let us. Now you can hear the game too. Okay. Hey, I know how to stream. I promise. Not really. Anyway, okay. So we want to break somebody's freaking neck. Okay. Um. So we're gonna do this one. We're gonna put a Probodobadine Stay Putnik on it. All right. It's a Mark II Stay Putnik. Apparently, I don't know what happened to Mark One. It looks nice and shiny. Can it change? I got some electrical charge. I gotta learn about this hibernation. I don't know the first thing about it. Hibernation, I guess auto would probably be better on that one. So you're not running out of batteries while it's warping or something, I imagine. I know there's always been issues with that kind of thing. Okay, we gotta get some power. Utility, no. Electrical. Yeah, we need to stick some batteries over here. There we go. Okay, gorgeous. Not really, but I think I'm gonna move that in. Bring that in like that. That looks better to me. Okay. And then we need an antenna, I think. Yeah, we need an antenna. Just one. Just one antenna will do. I'm going to call this the Minotaur. Okay. And then got some nice big fuel tanks relative to what we've had in the past. I don't think those are what we want. We want this sucker here. Oh no, we don't want to kill the person, so we do want to have a decoupler. We'll let them decouple. And we will give them parachutes, but we're going to put a lot of parachutes on there because we want it to like stop on a dime, okay? All right. Doesn't that look pretty? Okay. Most Kerbal thing ever. All right. Let's take a look at all this. Show all. Thrust to weight ratio 2.76. That's not nearly as much as I'd like, but you know what? I think it's the best we're going to get. Now, maybe some command and control here. So we do want to be able to steer it, I would say. Here we go. And we can get rid of this monopropellant. Okay. And let's see, who's going? I'm not going to put Jeb or... Oh. She's our... Oh, we got a very specific... Oh, she has a G-force tolerance increase of 0.75 times. So, max sustainable G, 5.6 G. So, we got to break 5.6 G. Okay? All right. All right, tourist. How much can Valentina? Valentina can go 6.7 G. Bob can do 5.7. 5.8, 6.6. Oh, this is kind of cool that they have different attributes now. Yeah, I can't wait to see one pass out. I've never seen that before. Okay, gonna call this Minotaur. Okay, and we'll save that, and we'll launch it. We gotta check y'all staging, because if we don't check your staging, then problems could occur. I think it's about right. Okay. Let's put our SAS on. Or not. There's no SAS, I guess. So, max thrust. Not that it matters. We're just trying to go. Oh no. I don't think we did it. We failed. I'm going to revert. Revert flight. Revert to launch. Let's see if sending her straight up will be better. Less aerodynamics. If not, we'll have to go back into the VAB and stick some fins on this sucker. Oh, jeez. We're losing it. Okay. Yeah, we're going to have to go back to the VAB. Put some fins on it. All right. Aerodynamics, fins. 4 fins ought to do it. Save, launch. Let's hope at least, right? It's already working better. Turn this puppy. Come on, puppy, turn. Oh, you know what I did is I just blew out the parachutes. Let's see if we can get that G-force up enough though. How high is she gonna go? Well, she's almost to Apple Apps. She's tumbling and having a great time. She looks like Jeb. No good. Okay. So we need to revert. You can revert to launch, and we need to set up these parachutes, I think. We need to think this through a little bit better. Wind risky, none of that. That does it for all of them. And then altitude, whatever. And yeah, okay. Go ahead and turn it again pretty quick. Woo, doggy, what a ride. Oh man, not even close. All right, we're gonna have to think of a new tack because this ain't working. You'll still put like 2 on there, but maybe what we got to do is we got to put okay, this is gonna work. I can tell it's gonna work. See what I'm doing here? Alright. There we go. If that's not the most curveball rocket ship you ever seen in your life, I don't know what is. Okay. Ooh, doggy. Okay. So we gotta stop. We're gonna stop on a dime. Okay. All right. All right. Ooh. Cancel. Save. That's all I was trying to do. Not load. Okay. Ready? Ooh, we want those to go after. I think like that, yeah. Oh, snap. It's going nowhere. It's too heavy. I don't have enough thrust to weight ratio. Okay. Ugh. Okay. Let's oh, Control Z. Let us okay, we'll just do 4. And let's see here. These go here. And that goes there. I need to get that TWR past where it is. So I'm gonna need to that'll do her. Okay. It's getting more Kerbal by the second. Oy. All right. Yeehaw. Just to get it away from this. I don't want anything to crash over there. That didn't work nearly as well as I thought it would. She's having a ride. Oh, we're getting up there. Oh, we got it. All right. Did we complete the mission? Yes. Not how I thought we would, but we did it. Nothing but great things to say about the trip. Well, that was a trip. All right. That was fun. I don't even know if that was worth the. I think we probably spent more money than we gained. There's your monolith. All right. How do I stop that? Well, I guess that's one way to do it. Close it. We have escaped the gravitational influence of Kerbin. And we have initiated the first flyby of the sun. What? That's unexpected. What did I send out of orbit? Let us see. Got it. Minotaur debris. Oh. There's debris that was sent flinging. It was the parachute. It's in orbit, but it is quite literally going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so 8.5 million meters per second. Oh my goodness. That's around Kerbal. Its periapsis is there. Goodbye, Kerbal system. Just watch as Kerbal fades. I should F5 before I get too far into this. Just to make sure I don't, with the Kraken, do too much damage. We're at max warp. Can no longer see the distinguishment between the planets. I wonder if it'll go to tera meters. This is definitely not the kind of fun I was expecting to have, but I'll be honest, I am having fun. I know right now we're just kind of staring at it, but I want to see it get to tera. Uh-oh, contract deadline expired. Okay, this is going to take a little bit of while. It's just nothing but skybox now, really. It's a really nice skybox. Oh no, it auto-saved. Oh boy. Let's look at the wiki while we wait. Let's see. Yeah, so there's apoapsis and periapsis, but it's not giving it to me. I wonder if we just need a Stop the warp. Interesting. We'll have to play with that. Is it still tracking the other one? It's almost impossible to tell. It's just nothing but skybox right now. Okay, let's take a look at Google here. We've got roughly 400 billion meters. Okay. So, we have 400. You're going to have hundreds, thousands, millions, and billions. So wait, 100, thousands, millions. Oh, we need. We still only gone 0.04 thousandths of a light year. That's 3, 6, 9, 12. Okay, 3, 6, 9. Wait. 3, 6, 9, 12. Yep. All right. Interesting. It's not as dim as I would think it was going to be. Considering we're almost 500ths of a light year, 5,000ths of a light year away. Halfway there. Oh, man. I wish I could just skip forward like you. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Easter eggs. Yeah. Been there. Done that. Seen it. Planted the flag. Okay, 3/4 of the way there. Okay, we're getting there. Okay. Just a little bit more. $20, $19, $18, $17, $16, $15, $14, $13, $12, $11, $10, $9, $8, $7, $6, $5, $4, $3, $2, $1. Oh man, it went. Okay, I'm not going to find out what goes after T. Let us slow everything down. Okay, it's low to save. Yeah, I think it's this one. Go back to the base center. And we'll go to the tracking station. And we will eliminate these two debris. That's funny though. That's fine. I don't care who you are. That's funny right there. Alright. We'll leave the facility. So now let's focus on tests. Let's see what else we got though. Okay. Yeah, test the launch site. Sure. 4 tourists on a high G adventure. Oh man. Okay, we gotta figure out a way to get some good science. I hate this early science grind. I do. Okay. Have we made orbit? We haven't made orbit. Let's make orbit. Let's do everything we can to make orbit. Waving. You know what we're gonna do is we're gonna open this sucker. Okay. Did we ever get to see this thing fly? I don't know that we did. I guess we did. But I guess it just never made it to orbit. Alright, let's see what we got. Orbit or bust. Alright, finally got an apoapsis here. Uh-oh. We lost a tail section. No. Oh. I guess we'll have to work on trying to get that to work better. Alright. Let's see if that'll do better. Okay. So we're going to keep an eye on our apoapsis over here, and we're also going to keep an eye on our actual altitude. I wish we could have both next to each other. Well, I might still download Engineer, because I like having it stock, but Clicked off the program there. Okay. Alright, got an apoapsis of 81 here. And we can't put maneuver nodes on or anything yet, but I'm willing to bet that we could probably make orbit this time around. We still got 1200 delta V meters per second. They're in space. Save it. In case we just totally botch this thing up. And you want that periaps to go up. There it goes. All right, we are in orbit. Congratulations, guys. Let's see. We've entered orbit. Orbit Kerbin. Achieve goal, orbit Kerbin. Okay, great. Now, let's see how's that doing for us. Yeah, so we got a little bit more science. All right. So let's let them go around. How many meters per second? So we got 447 meters per second. I don't know how much it's going to take to get back to Kerbin, but I'm willing to bet that we could probably push things out. So let's oh look, and she can now just, you can click on programming because she has upgraded. She is now on the next tier, which is nice. All right. We're going to F5 one more time. See if we can't get to the next level. Forget how much high space high is. Well, we'll have to see if that was too much or what. Okay, now let's see about observing the materials bay. Okay, we'll reset that experiment and set it to the side. Let's crew report. Yeah, we'll reset that, but we'll also set it to the side. Oh, here it is. Okay, I was like, I thought we had a whole thing of stuff. Okay, so mystery goo. Nothing really new there. reset that, and then reset that. Keeping an eye on that electric charge, which isn't really going down, which is good. So let's see. Yeah, that works because now we're in space high. Okay. Keep the experiment. We'll do a crew report. I'll try and transmit that. So mystery goo, log pressure data, log temperature data. We'll keep all of those. All right. Now we want to go to retrograde. Once we are facing retrograde, we want to lower our periapsis here till I'd say maybe 30,000. Hopefully not run out of. Oh yeah, that's actually more than enough. Okay. So we'll have a little bit of braking ability. Spin that last bit of fuel. Go ahead and close that. Now, we can't get out, can we? There's no EVA. Oh, we can? Ooh. EVA report. Okay, we'll store that experiment. And then when we get back down lower, we'll want to do that again. Okay. EVA. EVA report. Keep experiment. Board. Nice. Still got electric charge. Just go ahead and go retrograde here, guys. Orient our craft. There we go. And that's pretty good looking for stock game, I'll tell you. It's looking pretty good. Alright, let's get back to re-entry here. Go ahead and burn off the rest of our fuel here. And then we will kick that stage off. Go ahead and close those doors. I think we're going to get a lot of good science out of this one. Performed a spacewalk in orbit when we've broken a speed record. Nice. Okay. I'm worried about those batteries. I'm pretty sure those batteries are going to go. I have forgotten about the batteries being sticking out there. Oh, hey, Harley. Sorry, I just noticed you. It's only been, what, like 20 minutes? Hey. How you doing, buddy? Oh man, these are gonna blow up. They're gonna overheat and blow up. It's okay, I don't think I really need them. Oh, there goes one. Oh, there goes another one. Oh, snap. Oh, that's gonna be scary for them to hear all these explosions. Oh man. And that one is not doing it. It's not blowing up. Oh, it did. Okay, it blew up. Okay, we should be good now. We should be good. Thank you so much on congratulating me on my 7,600 views and 61 subs. I can't believe that. Um, when I started a couple months ago, I was maybe at 25, 30 subs. So I've effectively doubled my subscription count. It's like out of an action movie. Okay, so we made it. We made it through the atmosphere. That's the hardest part. It's all downhill from here, quite literally. Maybe not downhill, but it's all down. Okay, looks like they're gonna land. Where are we at? Okay, so we're completely on the other side of curb, and actually, I think that's our. I don't know, but it's all good. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and hit that. Let the chutes go out. I'm going to let go of my SAS. I'm going to let physics do the work now. I'm going to go ahead and accelerate to 4 times time warp. And I don't think we're quite going to make it to land here. We're still going to be splashed down. Otherwise, we could maybe get some more. All right. Full deployment of chutes. 5.2 meters per second, which is a nice safe thing. Yeah, I mean, KSP having cities would be nice. There is a mod that does something similar. It doesn't really add cities to explore. There's some buildings and stuff right at the main KSP place there, but they do also have it to where they'll like have lights. So when you're in space, you can look down and have lights. But they did add different landing and takeoff areas. Actually, there are 3 now. 3 or 4, for sure. And you can go straight from the VAB to one of those now, which is nice. All right, splash down and pump over. We'll orient them up so when they open the door, they can breathe. All right, and recover. That's all she wrote. I don't think I'll have time for another thing before I gotta go pick up my kid. All right. Lots of good science. Oh yeah, we go on science spending. All right, we got some decent funds from all that, and we got some people that advanced in their experience points. Great. Okay, so now we only have 226, so we can maybe get a 2. All right, now let's see what our goals are. Explore the moon. We'll take that. And these are all just boring grind things that I don't care about. Okay, so let's see. What do we got here? We got electrics, where we get a bigger battery. Get some lights, photovoltaics. Photovoltaics are actually pretty important. We get the protodobodyne, OKTO. So it's an unmanned probe there. Okay. Then we get the thermal control system. All right, so that might be worth getting. Miniaturization. I don't think that's quite needed yet. Space exploration. Again, I don't think that's quite needed yet. Flight control. That would be really nice to have. I don't know that might be my number 2. I don't know. Bigger heat shields and stuff. I don't know. I don't think so. All right, fuel systems. Get some. Oh, we can start doing asparagus staging now if we get that. Okay, that's maybe a higher priority for me. Okay, propulsion. We get the spark. We can get this little baguette thing, which I like. Alright, and some more engines here. Really up our game. Okay, so I think we definitely, to be able to start launching some satellites, we need photovoltaics. And having the Probodobodine OKTO plus the battery will also be helpful. And then, you're talking about flight and control. This would be nice, but I think I'd rather have a bigger rocket. Yeah, I think we're going to go for this so we can asparagus stage. Okay, and then that's all she wrote. I don't have... Oh, I do have enough for one of these. So we'll go ahead and get this one too. Alright, get that too. Alright, that's all she wrote. Make sure we don't have any other decent ones. What are my active ones? I need to test a bunch of stuff. Let me get these tests out of the way. Alright. I was confused until I remembered you are USA and I'm UK, and then 6 hour time. Yeah. Are you talking about the 2 a.m. thing this morning? And Harley, you're not dumb. You ain't dumb. All right. So, yep, he says. Okay, let's go for a new craft. And let's look at our contracts here. We got another world first. We have return to the surface from orbit. That's always helpful. Okay. Yeah, Harley, you need to go back and watch the beginning of this live stream. Something really funny happened when I had to make somebody pass out from G's, and then what happened was I started spinning it around, and then it crashed into the ground. That person unfortunately died. I got my contract though, so it doesn't really matter. And they were just a tourist, and oh dear, he says. And then it flung the parachutes out of the Kerbal system. Not the planet, but the sun. It was going out, and I tracked it all the way to 100 terameters. I think terameters would be the right one. Or maybe it was terakilometers. I don't know. I got the little number to T for tera, which means it was big. Okay. Let's see here. Let me focus. We need it. Splash down, in flight. That's probably going to be the hardest. At the launch site, splash down. And, okay, so let's do all of our splash down. So we will just do... What's the difference between these two? It also provides automatic stabilization assistance. Okay, so we want that because it just gives you your SAS, basically. All right, the OKTO. It looks good. Yeah, this is my first time playing in like 7 months. Second time playing in 7 months, I should say. I played like a couple days ago. So I'm like, there's a lot of new stuff that I'm finding out. And I'm getting ready for this new one that they're about to drop too. Alright, so I guess we'll go straight to parachute. And we'll need comms. Just some really basic comms. Like that. And Yeah, we'll put it. I think that's enough battery. We could put photovoltaics on there, but we're not going to do that. It's just not going to be out long enough. We're just getting this into the water. That's all we're trying to do. Alright. Alright, so what do we got to test? Okay, test the Juno basic jet engine splashdown at Kerbin. Alright, so engines. Tested that splashdown at Kerbin. So we're going to want to put a decoupler. That's a big one. That's a bigger one. That's a bigger one. So that's the smallest one we got. Okay. Fuel tanks. Let's look at our fuel tanks here. We might attach this to the side or something. What I was going to do, structural, maybe like stick one of these. I think we're going to need some command and control here. I guess we don't need to disengage it at all because it's going to be splashed down. So, all right. So what else? The Ant liquid fuel engine. Let's get these on a different staging. Okay, and then what else we got to test? We got to get the splashdown, the radial decoupler. It's the TT38K. All right, this guy. We'll test that. All right. The Flea solid fuel booster at the launch site. Okay. Flea. All right. Oh, I can't attach to the base of that with a decoupler. Oh, that's a bit lame. Okay. Why can't I attach it to like, ooh. Can I attach it that way? Looks funny. But that'll work. Okay. Let us add just a hammer. All right, so when we launch, we want that one. Come on. There we go. We want that one to go, then that will decouple and go at the same time. That's good. And that'll decouple, and yeah, we'll have that deploy. And then we'll have each of these be their own thing. Yeah, and so we'll do our test there. All right. So that ought to be a decent test engine thingamajigger. It's the ugliest craft you ever seen in your life, but I just saw the debris flying past the sun party. Isn't that funny? Okay. So here we go. Let's see here. Go. All right, completed that first contract. Whoa, buddy. Keep it steady. Oh, no. Keep it steady. Not enough control. Yeehaw. Why is it still attached? Oh, it's not. Okay, good. Go away. Did I even make it? I didn't even make it into the water. I didn't even make it into the water. Okay, let's try it again. I'm just going to revert to flight. Oh, man. Didn't even make it in the water. It's like your dog. That's funny. My dog will do that sometimes too. Chase his tail. No, stay. No. Get off of me. Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez. Okay. We're gonna have to go back into the VAB. Know what we need. You're probably right, but to fix that, we're simply going to throw some of these on there. That'll solve the problem. Don't worry about center of mass. Just add more parts. That'll solve the problem. It's Kerbal Space Program. This will work. Oh, they'll stay on. Yeah, see, it's already better. We're splashing down this time, buddy. Man, look at that gorgeous sky box. You ever seen the sky like that? I never have. Holy moly. Okay. All right. And we're headed back down. Go ahead, slow her down. Let that other piece get away. And turn off our SAS. There we go. Bye. And it splashed down. There we go. All right. That one got complete. We got one science from it. Woohoo! Come on. Get down there. All right. 2, 1, and safe. Is it sinking? That's interesting. All right. So let's look at our contract parameters. Yeah, we're splashed down. So ready, set, go. Ready, set, go. Ready, set, go. Awesome. Awesome possum. Okay, we're going to recover. We can't recover because we're underwater. It's sinking. Oh, wow. This is all new to me. I've never sunk something because they didn't have that last time I was playing this game. Well, goodbye, parts. You really weren't that necessary anyway, so I guess we'll just go back to the Space Center. Space Center. Space Center. Why can't we go to... The game cannot be saved at this point. Leaving now will set you back to the last. Oh, cancel. Problems. Alright, we'll cover this part of the vessel. I just went over to the next thing that I had jettisoned. It's a crack in space. Okay. Look at that. We can recover this. Yeah, we'll take that. Alright, so we got 10 science from that. We probably got some other things, but we got all of our contracts out of the way. Great. Okay, so what active contracts do we have? Explore the moon and test that in the air somehow. You know what? I don't want to do this, so screw it. I'm not going to. Alright, what do we got? Anything good? No, not really. Alright. Try and go for the moon. That's what we're going to do. Yeah, I know. It cost me some money. I don't care. Alright, we're going to try and go for the moon, but we're just going to send a probe. We're not going to send a person yet. Okay, so we'll start with the probe-a-doba-dine. There we go. And we don't need to get this probe back, so we're just going to, it's just a one-way trip, so there's no utility, no parachutes on this thing. But we do want to maybe send some science. And I think that would be too big. That's too heavy. I think that even might be too heavy for this mission. So we're just going to send some really basic science for now. I don't know. Maybe we ought to reconsider this. Yeah, we'll do that. It kind of looks funny, like a face. Okay, and then we do need to do some comms here. So I will put a basic comm on there. There we go. And then I will put high gain on there as well. There we go. Just like that. Now, I need to worry about how is it being propelled. Actually, electrical. That might be important too. In fact, I'll put 2 of those batteries on there, and we will stick photovoltaics all over the sucker. There we go. And we'll even add some over here. Not that many, though. We'll just do 2. Like that. There we go. Okay, and thermal, don't need to worry about that. I don't know, maybe we might need a radiator, I don't know. We'll assume not. Wonder if we'll need something like this, but I think we'll just try going without it. Alright. Can you tell everyone who is watching or will watch to join the Discord? Okay. Hey everybody, I have a Discord server. Shoot, I don't know. I gotta figure out how to. Let's see. Gotta open it up. Oy vey. I'm going back to this. I'll let that open up. Okay, and yeah, let's do some reaction control here. Yeah, that looked better. Okay, we can maybe move this. up. More central. Okay, and now for engines. Whoa, that looks very different. Okay, let's look at the Discord here. Now that it's up, so this is my Discord server. Okay. All right, thank you. You're good. You're good. Yeah, give you a. Insta invite. We'll set this to never expire. Copy. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Here we go. And then paste. There you go. There's a Discord server. Have fun, guys. Bring it on. I will talk to you. We'll chit chat. We'll be in touch. Okay. My people will call your people, and we'll set something up. All right. So the Terrier engine got some new looks to it too. Look at that. Oh, that's ooh. That's cool. Okay. So what's the best ISP here? We got 345, 310, 320. So that's the best ISP. So that's definitely what I'm going to be using. So now I need to figure out my fuel. All right. Saw big stuff. Oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah, we're going to pretend like that doesn't hit like it does. Okay. Do I have any smaller tanks? Alright, it's going to be time to pick up my son from school soon, so I need to be thinking about that. How much if I just threw it on like that? How much delta V? Alright, so that's one of the things I don't like. So I don't want to be seeing that every 5 minutes, so I'm going to leave the Discord for now. Alright. So not enough. We need to add some more to that. Maybe too much. Maybe just right. Alright, so yeah, that gives us 900 meters per second. That ought to get us anywhere we want to go. And maybe we could go back to the full invariant. Doesn't really matter. Yeah. Doesn't really need to be showed it like that. Okay. And then we'll go to do our decoupler here. Wrong one, apparently. Apparently wants that one. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Then we'll go to the biggest thing I got, I think. Let's move this all up. Let's see. There we go. Now what I could do well, I wanted it for there too. As soon as I clicked on your Discord, I already had a Discord invite. Don't you have to pick up your kid soon? Yeah, well, I'll get off and go do that. I still got like 20 minutes. I still got like 20 minutes to do that. All right, so we're starting to get us something here. All right, and what engine are we going to use? Let's see here. The Reliant, the Swivel. Take the Swivel. I'm going to look at our Okay, that comes off, and then that one goes. We can combine that. Okay, that goes. So what is our... So that's not nearly enough thrust to weight ratio right there. That's something we need to be worried about. So I get the big tanks, but I don't have the big engines yet. That's something I need to be cognizant of. Because otherwise, I mean, I might as well just use this on that. Or I might just need to take that off and do it like that. Yeah, so that'll have over a 1 thrust to weight ratio. But then, why make it bigger? Why make it bigger? Why don't we just go back to our fuel tanks here, and we'll just use like these. Yeah, I'll just use like that. And that goes, that's a pitifully poor thrust to weight ratio. How's that do? Still bad. Oh, well, because I'm looking at the wrong thing. Okay. Looking up here instead of down here. Yeah, that's kind of pushing it. I think what we need to do is do a smaller one. Like that. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So that makes me want to go back up here and change this up a little bit. I don't necessarily want all that. Maybe instead we can just have because I just kind of want that. Maybe like one of these. Uh-oh. Wrong button. Alright. And then where'd my little engine go? Oh, it's here, isn't it? Yeah, there's my little Terrier engine. Okay. It's got a much better thrust to weight ratio, but maybe we can make that tank a bit bigger. So we'll use this one. Yeah, and it doesn't have quite as much delta V, but you know what? That works for me. Okay. And then this one down here is now overpowered, so we can throw a bigger tank on there and still be good to go. Alright, throw some boosters on there, and I don't see why we couldn't get to the moon. Alright, let's throw some decouplers on here. No, just two. Just throw them on right there. Get the thumpers. We'll actually make them aerodynamic. And we'll throw some fins on here. There we go. I want to actually move these down as far as I can go. There we go. We don't have the fairings yet, so can't close that off, but it ought to go. It ought to work. Alright, any questions? Uh-oh. Am I still streaming on YouTube? I don't even know. Wow. I had closed the window. It still streams even when we don't have the browser open. That's kind of interesting and good to know. All right. So, sorry about that. Technical difficulties. And, what's the essay on, buddy? All right. We'll save that. Check my staging. Okay, those go. Then these go with that, and then that goes with that. Yeah. Okay. Launch. Okay, moon or bust. Here we go. Let us see here. Got our nice gravity turn started here. One thing I forgot to do is check the throttle on these, so that might be detrimental to my ultimate goals here, but we're going to just try and go with it for now. Maybe throw that down. We want to have a positive thrust to weight ratio though. There we go. Gravity turn's looking good. We're at 20 kilometers. And our apoapsis is about 27 now. And I always like to be right about there at about 20 kilometers, so that's perfect. Now I'm going to go to orbit here. And I am still going to start ticking down, but not till I get to 30. So 30 is really when I start to tick down a little bit. So now we're at 30, so now we can start ticking over. I have not watched any of those shows. My wife has, but I haven't. Chicago PD, Med, or Fire. Okay. Alright, so we've got a good orbit. Now we can't do maneuver nodes, so we're just going to have to do this the hard way, which is fine. Alright. So whenever you're coasting up, you want to try and be prograde, really from the surface prograde, because what that's going to do is it's going to minimize the drag that your vehicle has going through the atmosphere. Now that you're in space, it doesn't matter, but before it would have. Alright, so now, right about here, I guess I'm going to just start to start my burn. Right there. Alright, so I want to go prograde. Make sure I'm prograde. I'm going to keep an eye on my apoapsis and my periapsis, really. And I'll probably run this out of fuel. I don't know. I'm waiting for my periapsis to basically go to 80, at least. All right. Looking good. And we definitely reached orbit. So now we want to go for the moon. So we're going to wait for that moon to come up on the horizon. So we're going to burn right about here. That's my guess. Right about periapsis now. So let us go forward a little bit. I'm going to go back to this view. And we want to stay prograde. As soon as that moon comes over the horizon, that's when we burn. Now be careful because the camera can trick you a little bit. But oh, come on, where's that moon? Am I missing it? Oh, there it is. There's the moon. Okay. Alright. So now we're going to burn prograde till the apoapse here is going to intersect the moon right about here. You got to be careful because it's going to start going real quick, so you don't want to let it get too far away. So don't be afraid to throttle down. Oh boy, where's my capture? Get F5 here. See if I can't get a capture. I wonder if it's just not showing it to me. How much delta V do I have left? I still got plenty. So I'm just going to go back down. Wait, what? Could do it to about right there. Okay, let's just see. Keep an eye on the moon there. It's being glared out by the sun. But we should be going right for it. Yeah, it's definitely going to capture us. In fact, we're going to hit it unless we change our trajectory. So now we got to really think. If I'm looking at the moon, I'm going to go that way. Nope, wrong way. That way. Highly inefficient, but alright, there we go. So let's F5. And let's go ahead and observe mystery goo. And we can send that science on. And then we'll log temperature data and send that science on. We can log pressure data and we'll send that science along. It'd be better if we could bring it back to Kerbin, but this is never going back to Kerbin. This is just going to be either a satellite or no. So I don't know if we have enough Delta V. Shoot, we might just land it. It might become an impromptu lander. Be nice when we have our avionics. And just about 5 minutes before I'm probably going to start to end this thing. But I think that's enough time to go ahead and get us in orbit as we watch the surface below us. Alright. Let's go ahead and go. Oh, we don't have a direct view of Kerbin, so we're going to have to wait till we get out of the shadow of the moon from Kerbin. I forgot to take that into account. Oh, that's cool. I love it. We're on the dark side of the moon. So we missed our maneuver because we don't have any control. But we'll gain it back in enough time. There it is. Okay. So now we have control again. Maximize our burn. And we've got a nice little orbit here. And while we are in space low, let's go ahead and observe our mystery goo. Yes, yes. Log the pressure data. And log the temperature data. And we'll send those on. All right. And that is one successful mission. All right. So, explore the moon. Any closer would there'd be paperwork. Let's keep going and see where it takes us. Okay. And initiated the first flyby, gathered the first scientific data, and entered orbit of the moon. Oh, great. Congratulations on finishing your essay. Would I ever like to be a spaceman? In the sense that would I like to go to space? Absolutely. I want to, on my bucket list, go around the moon at least once in orbit around them. Or not necessarily in orbit, but at least go around the backside of the moon. If I saw that before I died, I'd die happy. That being said, I don't know if I'd want to be like an astronaut or live in space. I probably would want to live in space in maybe 100, 150, 200 years, but not the way it would be now. So there's your question. Okay. So let's see. What else can we do with this sucker? Let's get out of orbit. Ooh. Let's get out of the orbit here. Come on. Oh, I think that's enough. Yeah, it was. Alright, let's go prograde now with this probe and really see what we can do with this sucker. Now, I don't know that we can hit Minimus without maneuver nodes, it's going to be pretty much impossible. So I think what I'm going to go for is just getting outside the sun, or outside of Kerbin. I think that's more than enough. How much Delta V I got left? I got more than enough Delta V left too. I could get around, like I have enough Delta V, I just need to have a better tracking station, really. I wonder if I could just maybe go back, upgrade it, and then come back to this mission. Anything worth having? Nope. Alright, so it's F5. And with the few minutes as they dwindle we have left, we're just gonna say sayonara to Kerbin. Oh, but you know what? I think we've lost control because we don't have enough. Yeah, we've lost control. Escape the gravitational influence. Yeah. Good old Jack. Yeah, my antenna is not good enough, I guess, to go this far out. Okay, that wasn't... I just needed to extend the antenna. Awesome. Alright, so let's see if and when we leave Kerbin space. There we go, we hit it. Freaking sweet, man. Okay. Log the pressure data. Transmit that back. Nice. Log temperature data. Transmit it back. As you would know, there's no pressure and it's pretty cold. But we got science for figuring that out for sure. Alright. Enter the orbit of the sun and gather the first scientific data from the sun. Cooled beans. And how much Delta V do I have? I still got a ton of Delta V. Let's go prograde. See how far we can take this sucker. Probably gonna lose signal before we actually get anywhere worth going to, but yeah, take a shot. I still got just a few more minutes. What a great little probe I built, huh? Very capable. Maybe what I should have done is just landed it on the moon instead of going this way. Yeah, I wonder if we can revert. I don't even remember what the button is. Is it F11? Load save. Persistent. Year 1, day 16. That's the actual time. Year 1, day 22. Yeah, let's load this up. Let's see. Instead of going to the sun, let's try and land on the moon. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, let's upgrade that sucker. Can't do it twice, but we'll enter it. Name a book called The Probe That Went Far, dedicated to that probe. Muna 1. Fly. Okay, I upgraded my conics, so we got it. Whoa. Yeah, so we're already around the thing, but now we can do a maneuver node. Escape Kerbin. Okay, so We're already on the escape trajectory to curve, so let's go ahead and we'll do it. We'll go ahead and get these log pressure data, send that back, and we will log temperature and send that back. And we need to go ahead and permanently extend the antenna. There we go. And then put a maneuver node here. Oh yeah. Okay. So we'll set as target Duna. And then let's see here. We're doing this at the wrong time of year. Bad conjunction. But let's see if we can't change that. Ooh, that was looking promising. No, we want to go this way. Oh, there's my alarm. Yeah, so we get a capture. Have a Duna encounter. Okay. So let's focus view. Let's get a good Duna encounter, shall we? Wave A, where is it? I should already be burning apparently to make this happen, but let me get it a little bit closer first. Ooh. All right, so we got that nice encounter with not only Duna, but with Ike. Start burn in 34 minutes. Okay. Yeah. How much delta V? Oh, I don't think I'm going to have that. Too much delta V. Alright, so we're just going to burn. See how close we can get. Yeah, see, it even shows the red where you're going to stop. That's very... How powerful is that? That's much more powerful than it used to be. No, I only do live on YouTube, and we're out of fuel. So that's all she wrote. That's the best she could. Farewell, ye little probe. Enjoy your infinite journey on countless revolutions around the sun. All right, let's go back to the Space Center. That's going to be it for this live stream. I don't know. Might come back. Now, one other thing that I want to do before I go is ooh, there was an interesting sound. So I'm going to share this. So earlier today, I released my podcast, if you hadn't seen it yet, and there is the link to it there. So go check out my podcast, Mars Talk. We talk a lot about space. We talk about the Artemis project in particular in this episode, the Artemis program that NASA just announced, and we also talk about Pluto and a couple other things. So thank you, Harley, for going and checking that out. Make sure to let me know what you think, if you think we can do anything better with it. And thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.